All right, thank you all for coming, and wanted to really answer some questions about our red light video enforcement program. And you know, the results are in for many of the intersections, and what we see is, I think the situation that's been found around the state where they've been introduced, and that is there's a reduction in side impact, an increase in rear end crashes at these locations. And I don't know how significant it has been around the rest of the state, but one thing I can tell you is that in Duval anyway, it looks like our number of red light runners is going down significantly. So that's a good thing, unless you're looking for revenue out of this system, which is what I said many times I was not worried about. And in fact, we drafted our contract with Redflex in such a way that the taxpayers of Duval County would never pay a dime, regardless of whether red light runners violations drop to zero. We don't pay a dime. And we've actually made a little money off of it. It looks like somewhere around $370,000 roughly. This year we put zero revenue in the budget because it's just too volatile to even try to figure out. We had a number of red light violations that we saw being committed, so we projected like 1.5 million the first year and didn't come anywhere near that because the red light violations dropped off much more quickly than we had anticipated they would. So with that, we think it's very much a success from a side impact crash situation, which is obviously more dangerous than the rear ends. But I never was concerned about the revenue, so the fact that there's not much revenue in it, I'm not really concerned about. So with that, Stephanie?
We spoke a few weeks ago when we first found out there would be $0 put into the revenue for the budget. And your statement at that time was, it's a good thing, it means safety. Looking at these numbers though, I mean, we're seeing a real mixed bag here in terms of the number of crashes. Some are up, a pretty substantial number, some are down. Rear end, as we said, nearly across the board up. Are we still looking at this and saying, no, it means safety?
Oh yes, I think so, because look, the rear ends are not nearly as dangerous to life and limb as a side impact crash, obviously. And so we're more concerned about the side impact crashes than I am rear ends. And they have gone up, but that's kind of been the history of video red light enforcement all over the country. You see rear end impacts go up, and then eventually they start going back down. So our side impacts are, 10 of our intersections are either down or the same. And so that's good news.
Among the rear impact, though, or I'm sorry, not rear, side impact, a lot of them are down. The ones that are up, it's also kind of a pretty substantial increase in some cases. I'm looking, we've got San Jose and Clare, we've got Gate and Southside, we've got 103rd and Bricker. So again, there's a majority that are down specifically with that crash, but still others that are up. How do you change that?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can. I mean, that's, there is no silver bullet to traffic crashes and stopping. It takes a multitude of things, and video red light enforcement is just one element. And, I hope that, like airing this information, I hope will make people understand that, look, people are going to be stopping now at red lights because the number of violations are down significantly. So with that, people need to understand that when you're approaching a red light that is changing, slow down and stop, because the car in front of you is probably not going to run the red light like they used to do. And that's why we've had such an increase in rear end crashes. And so that's the message. Stop at the intersection.
If that's the message that we've given drivers for the past 1.5, almost 2 years, that since the first cameras have been operational, and the first cameras are some of the ones that are showing the increase in crashes specifically, what new thing can we tell drivers to really make them listen?
Pay more attention. That's what I mean. It's an educational thing. To tell people, be aware of what you're doing as you approach an intersection. Put down your phone. Don't be texting. Don't do all these other things that distract drivers inside the compartment of that car. Pay attention to your driving, particularly when you're coming up on these intersections.
Well, Sheriff, I caught something last week on TV about embarrassing drivers, that the video was being released to show some near misses. Is that the embarrassment? Is that something you're going to do, social media?
I mean, it's not embarrassment because nobody knows who that individual is, but what we do hope that it will do is show people just how flagrant some of these violations are and what we're trying to prevent.
And how will you get that out? Social media? On
Yeah,
your Facebook page?
through YouTube and Facebook, yeah.
It sounds like a lot of making this program successful and effective is really not up to JSO, it's up to drivers.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, what JSO can do is educate the public. And it's an awareness campaign. You know, to make people think about their driving. That's why the video is showing these horrific cases of red light runners will hopefully make people stop and think. Two things. Number one, they also need to understand that not only do they need to stop at the intersection, but they need to also drive defensively and understand that even though you've got the green light, you may be in the right, but you could be dead right. And you need to look and make sure that nobody is running a red light that will strike you. And so it's an awareness campaign for drivers. That's the best part about it.
Did that video idea, the red light runner of the week, did that start because we started seeing these numbers?
I'm not sure who came up with that idea, actually. I like it, but I think, was that Les? Yeah.
And it's just happened to be now? Or?
Yeah, but look, we're developing ideas all the time. So, but I don't know. But it's a great idea.
Sheriff, there's statistics on the number of crashes overall. What about traffic homicide investigations? Have there been any at these red light intersections since the lights have been in place?
Oh, I'm sure there have been. Do we have the fatalities?
We did not pull the fatalities.
I don't think we have fatalities.
Is there anything that you can glean from it about?
I would suppose that there probably have been some. But what I would hope is that because the side impact crashes are down, I would think that they would be down as well.
Are you planning
But
to?
the difference between a traffic fatality at a side impact and not being a fatality is pretty chancy either way. You know, I mean,
Are you planning to continue the program and continue to put more in beyond what's already in place in the plan?
oh yeah, look, I think the program is very worthwhile. We reduce side impacts, which is one of our main concerns. The number of people running red lights is down, and that's an achievement, and that makes our roads safer. If fewer people are running red lights, everybody is safer.
When we're taking it that step further though, running red lights may, like you said, side impacts are down. But it's clearly not an across the board, it makes things safer, across the board. So what other changes do we maybe look at? We've got at least 3 more cameras that have been that are in the wings, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Other than public awareness or more public awareness, what do we do to make those more effective?
Well, look, I think you have to understand, first of all, we went to the high-frequency crash locations. So we went to the worst crash locations in the city to begin with. And so there's already something going on at those intersections that makes them worse than everywhere else. Whether it's the volume of traffic, distractions that may be in the area for drivers, I don't know, what causes a high traffic crash location to be a high traffic crash location. A lot of things go into that. Engineering, other things. We also have looked at all these intersections for engineering improvements. Is there anything that we can do? We did that when we first started the high frequency crash location program. You know, when we first started going out and announcing these HFCs, as we call them, and warning people, when you go into these intersections, be careful because this is a high-frequency crash location. We work corridors leading into them. You know, for us, it's mainly an education piece, educating the public about where it's dangerous to be driving.
So after seeing these numbers, are we stepping that piece up?
Yes, and we use, like the, you know, the videos. We can use that to educate the public as well.
Sheriff, how much goes into looking at these violations and in terms of officers here in your department, checking out these videos and seeing if somebody really did violate a red light? Because sometimes you see cars going over the white line and then the flash goes off and
Right.
cars think that they are getting a ticket. And also, how much in the budget is set aside for your officers who are looking into that?
Well, we have officers who just look at the videos that indicate someone has, or may be close to have run a red light. And then the officer looks at that and evaluates that video itself. And there's a line, an imaginary line, so that you, as long as you break that line prior to the light actually turning red, then you have not run that intersection, and you will not get a red light citation for that.
So the white line is before you pass. If two wheels pass it,
Right.
then that, okay.
As long as you break that plane, you're okay.
And how much
As
in
long
the
as you
budget?
Don't break that plane, right?
Pardon
As
me?
long as you don't cross that white line.
No, as long as you do break that plane before it turns red, you're okay. If you break that plane after it turns red, now you're in trouble.
Right. But there's still pictures, it's not video.
No, it's video.
It is video?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. In fact, we send them a video, and one of the nice things about this Red Flex program is they actually get 6 seconds before they run the light and 6 seconds after they run the light, and they can see they ran the light. You know, so that's why our appeals are very low.
Circling back to that question though, because you mentioned earlier, you know, that there was no Duval County taxpayer dime that went into installing this.
Right.
But how many officers are monitoring it, and is that coming out of the general budget, in your budget?
Yes, yeah, I do have 2 officers who are already in my budget, that are still in my budget. The 2, right?
We just
We-
added light duty last week
Okay.
to address the readdressing.
Yeah,
issue.
and we try to use light duty officers who are injured or whatever, and they can't work on the street. We have them doing that instead of secondary employment.
So we have 3 now.
We try to do that, yeah. Is
Just
there
started.
3 down there now?
We just added a third light.
A light duty person.
And
Yeah.
was there a reason we decided to bring a 3rd person on?
The readdressing issue.
I'm sorry, what is that?
What?
Let me speak to it. The readdressing issue, just recently, the Red Flex database, we were not having the most updated information on their driver's licenses. So we rectified that. We now have a patch with DHSMV. So a lot of the addresses on the licenses, the information we had was not the correct address. So when we mailed out the violation, it was returned to us. So we had to add that 3rd person in, because now that we have the capability to get the most current information in DHSMV, we are resending out those citations.
So how far back, I guess, might those citations be dated?
I can't give an exact date, but probably months,
So
several months.
if I, quote unquote, I ran a red light, you know, a couple months ago, I might find a citation all of a sudden in the mail?
That's correct. If it was sent to the wrong address, it would come back to us. If we found your current address, it would be resent to you at your new.
So these would be people that haven't changed their driver's license
That's
address
correct.
within the required 10 days.
More or less, how many were you seeing that were coming back? Was it a substantial number, or?
I can't give you in the overall amount of citations issued, I would say, you know, it was a pretty good sized number, but I'd say in the hundreds.
Again, I mean, if these have been operational, some of them more than a year and a half, why did it take this long to address that?
Because we just had Red Flex get that capability from DHSMV in order to give us that information. So,
And now it falls on JSO to
To
staff the extra person
reconcile
to.
those that were returned, yes.
So once we get that number back down or the system kind of flowing again, would we go back to 2 monitoring the videos or probably keep that third?
It depends on how the workflow's done.
It's all
We
driven by volume.
monitor that.
And to be clear, those salaries are paid out of your general budget, so there
Correct.
is money from the general fund that goes into review here.
Yes.
And, you know, obviously in the scheme of your budget, it's a tiny little drop in the
Right.
overall
Right.
scheme of things. But-
Especially when you consider the impact to public safety that we get by reducing side impact crashes. Heck, if we save 1 or 2 lives, that's worth the cost of a couple light duty officers down there. So,
And just because you projected $0, it doesn't mean you're not gonna make any money, that's just
No, right,
projection, and
right.
you're hoping that you,
right,
fall on the
what
other
we
side.
discovered was, it's too volatile, a revenue stream to figure out, you know, to project what it's gonna be. We just don't know. And so, we said 0 because, you know, we were looking at 1.5 at one time, but the numbers dropped off so drastically that, you know, I didn't wanna make a commitment to revenue that potentially wasn't gonna be there. Especially as tight as these times are, and as tight as our budget is, I can't afford to have, you know, a projected revenue stream that doesn't come in, and then I'm short and I gotta make it up somewhere else. So it was better to just say, look, we're not counting on anything, 0. But we know something will be there, just don't know what.
At what point do we sit down with these numbers and we see that there is an across the board, or not across the board, but a large increase in the number of crashes, rear end, again, understanding they're not quite as dangerous, but
Right.
at what point do we sit down with this and say, maybe it's not worth that continued investment, or maybe we need to put our resources somewhere else, maybe there's a better idea?
Well, if side impacts went up, I would agree, at some point, we need to look at whether it's worth the investment of even 2 officers down there. But as long as the side impacts are still going down, and I believe at some point, the rear impacts are gonna go down. People are gonna start stopping for red lights.
How do we believe that when some of the cameras which have been in the longest are the ones that are seeing the highest increase in rear end impacts?
Yeah.
When we're looking at,
Well, that's because they had the highest violators to begin with. And so, you know, I think it's a situation where people got used to running the red light, and now when somebody in front of them stops, they're surprised because everybody used to run the red light, and now they run into the back of them because they weren't expecting them to stop. They were expecting them to run the red light like they were gonna do. And, you know, eventually, I think that will change.
so high volume intersections can maintain red light cameras? It can work?
Sure, I think so. Look, I think you're right, it's a mixed bag, but if you just look at raw crash numbers, rear end versus side impact, but I think if you look at the type of crash, you know, and compare what's happening to the side impact versus rear end, which are not, I mean, they can be, but they're usually not as deadly or injurious as you know, a side impact.
I do want to add that total number of crashes citywide are down. We just got those numbers in, so
Is that including non-red light camera intersections or specifically
Yeah,
those?
that's
just
citywide.
total crashes citywide.
Yeah, not even.
Not even an
That counts
intersection, that would be
every
on
crash.
a neighborhood
Every
road,
crash.
that could be a
Yeah.
neighborhood,
Yeah.
and fatalities.
And that is year-to-date, obviously.
Yes.
Sheriff, many states, or should I say jurisdictions, have taken down their red light cameras because they weren't making any money. And then the accidents have gone way up. Is it safe to say that we're not making money here and the accidents are going up?
I don't think they took them down because crashes were going way up. They took them down because revenue was way down. However, when we drafted our contract with Redflex, we protected our taxpayers with the caveat that if it ever drops below the revenue needed for Redflex to maintain that, we don't pay a dime.
What does
So our taxpayers will never have to pay for a camera.
So do you
If the
envision a
revenue's
day,
not there, they don't get paid.
envision a day where these cameras disappear for some reason or other?
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. That would mean we don't have side impact crashes out there.
So if the revenue drops below, you said the taxpayers aren't on the hook, Redflex just doesn't get the money but still has to maintain the video services and everything?
Yep.
For, how long would they be expected to do that? For the life of the contract?
Yes.
And how long is the
Yes.
contract?
You know, I knew you were gonna ask that, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I'm not sure where we're at right now.
One question we didn't anticipate.
We can find out.
I'll find that out and get it to you, Steph.
Yeah. No.
With a chance
But that's the beautiful thing about our contract and the way we drafted it, because I know a lot of cities didn't do that. And so they had, for example, it's like $3,900 an intersection roughly, for the cameras per approach. Well, we said, look, we're not gonna pay anything. You get everything that you're gonna get through the enforcement revenue. And if there's no enforcement revenue, you don't get paid. And they're good with that.
With the chances of speed cameras coming here.
Pardon me?
With the chances of speed cameras coming here.
That's probably pretty slim, but I'll tell you what we really do need to look at. Y'all saw the piece not long ago, somebody ran, I don't know who it was, about school bus violators. People running school bus arms is atrocious. And Redflex is a provider who can actually put video camera enforcement on school buses. And I think they're trying to work with the school board now to look at that possibility. I think that would be tremendous, because that, I mean, when you see some of the videos in other areas where this is, you know, where these violations are occurring, it's horrific. And these are kids, you know, that are crossing these roads, and it just scares me to death that we have people so nonchalantly just driving past a stopped school bus. So that's where we really need to go, not speed, but those school buses. I'd love to see that.
So just to bring it back to
Okay.
red light cameras, just kind of, the big picture thing, is, when I first requested these numbers, the numbers we're sitting here looking at right now,
Right.
do you look at it and say, maybe there's one thing or anything that I want to change from this day forward after seeing this information? Is there any one thing you'd want to see different?
Oh yeah, Halo. Now we're working on Halo, which Halo is. Where are we on that, by the way? Because they were
testing.
Yeah, they're getting
We
some
got
state. They've got to get some state certification first. But Redflex is going to put in the Halo system, which if you can imagine this. Did you see the red light runner on the thing just the other day? Okay. On that video, what Halo will do is, if you're sitting on the crossroad with a red light, this car is coming down the street, and his light starts to turn red. Now his light is going to go ahead and turn red. It's going to go yellow, then it's going to go red. But the computer in the Halo system computes his speed and distance, and knows he ain't going to be able to stop. Now his light will turn red, and he will get the violation. But the car on the cross street, it will actually hold. It will delay his green, so he gets a longer red. So he doesn't get a green light and jump out there and get hit by this guy who's running the red light. So this should eventually even reduce our side impacts even more. And the benefit of this program is, Redflex has already agreed to put 20% in for free. We negotiated that in our contract. So 20% of our intersections we'll be able to put Halo in for free.
How many, or do we have to commit to doing all of them in order to get them to
No.
put in the 20%?
No.
So we can get the first
We just said
handful
whatever number
for
we
free?
put in, they will get 20% free.
Oh, okay, so it's not the overall intersections, it's if we're installing Halo here, you'll pay 20%, we'll pay the rest? Or is it they'll put in 20% of the intersections for free and we have to cover the other 80% of intersections?
No, my understanding from the contract is we're supposed to get 20% of the intersections that we have red light enforcement. Halo comes along with that for free,
Okay,
20% of that number.
got it, so we're not necessarily putting it in the other 80%, we don't know yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. And
Tom,
when-
take
In
on
fact, the
that?
city, or this, not the city, but the state, actually, are they doing the testing of non-video intersections as well? There was some talk about that.
Yes, yes.
So some of this is
And we've got 5
developing.
intersections, I think, identified for Halo. It's out on the site.
Right.
If you go out on the
Yeah.
website, it shows you which intersections have been identified.
But that's really good stuff.
And when are we expecting that to come?
It depends on the
There can be
certification
delays.
process.
Different things. I don't wanna give you a hard, fast date.
Yeah, I wish we could. That's not up to us,
Anything else, Stephanie?
so.
My last question is, on those red light, how long are the yellow lights per, I know the speed limit is, it varies, but like on a 45 mile, or 35 and a 55, I mean, the yellow lights, is
Yeah,
there a set table?
Yeah,
or-
let me address that, because I know a lot of people said, oh, the yellow lights were shortened and all that.
Right.
No, they weren't. In fact, they've all been set to, the NHTSA time that's required, the National Highway, what is it? National
Traffic
Highway
Safety-
Transportation Safety Agency. NHTSA has a set, time that yellow lights are supposed to be, and they've set it at whatever the required time is. And that's standard across, the city now, where it should have been all along. But it is now. Since we started this program, because nobody really talked about yellow lights until we started this program. And then they found some yellow lights were too short in areas, and that's why we changed them. As we put in red light, video enforcement, a lot of the yellow lights were changed to the proper NHTSA.
But you don't know how long that period is, that standard NHTSA.
No, I
3
think
seconds, 6
it
seconds.
changes, Dan, I think it changes based on, speed.
Okay.
Like if it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed zone, it's one length of time. If it's 55, it's a different length of time, because you need longer time to stop.
So how many seconds was it? Sorry.
Died.
Oh, okay.
We can,
We could
probably get to the NHTSA
Exactly,
standard.
So I thought it was 3 seconds for 30 miles an hour and 5.5 for 55 miles an hour.
yeah,
That's-
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, we can
We can get that.
that to y'all. But the main thing is, people need to know, oh, no, they're gonna shorten the yellow lights and write a bunch of things. No.
Well, they think it's 2 seconds and you're going 55 miles an hour, they're slamming on the brakes and
Yeah.
people are rear-ended.
Yeah, well, the problem too is, people look up and they see the yellow light, and they don't know if it's been yellow for a second or 3 seconds, and they think they're gonna try to make it. And that's why, I tell folks, a yellow light means slow down and stop, not hurry up and see if you can make it, So, because you don't know, when you first look up and see that yellow light, if it's already yellow, unless you actually see it turn yellow, you don't know how long it's been yellow. And to try and make it is ridiculous.
You're
You know,
halfway
slow
through.
down and stop, yeah, and then text after your stop.
Yeah. You look
Yeah,
up after your texting and
I love
look.
the billboard, that was on 95 for a while, I don't know if y'all saw it. It said, honk if you love Jesus, text if you want to see him, if you want to meet him. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Text if you
I
want to
haven't
meet
seen
him. I thought that was pretty good.
That's good stuff.
All right?
I'm presuming you have copies of those stats.
Yep.
Yeah.
It-
All right.
Do you need one?